and we're here today with Narendra, who is a spiritual master teacher and the founder of Spirituality for Results. Thank you for watching. Okay, in our last segment, we were talking about hearing from the divine, and you were explaining about the different minds and hearing from the super consciousness. So how can we be sure inside that we're actually hearing that, or we're just not making something up? I know that's a huge question, but do you have any tips about that?
Just to explain a little bit about myself, I have had no religious training. So the good thing about that is I approach the whole spirituality with open mind and more like an engineer or a more practical way. I could not even imagine that anybody can talk to God or anybody divine at all. How can you talk to somebody who's not around, nobody can see and touch? But then there are people, I had the fortune of meeting some people who could prove it. And I knew it by validating what they were telling me with a large amount of data. Then I knew that there are some facts about me, only I knew. How did the other person know? So that's one way to validate it. So as I understood and I followed my spiritual practices, I realized that yes, it's possible to do that. Sure, you hear about people, ministers and pastors talking about on Sunday services that, oh, last night God told me to do this or told me to do that. But many times it's not well explained as to how it works. So my take on this one is very simple. If you take a cell phone, and everybody knows how cell phones work, and let's say that phone rings, and you pick up the phone, and suddenly you hear a lot of noises, then you will not be able to hear the other person's voice, right? Even though you are talking to other person, but then all you hear is crackling sounds. Then there is only one-way communication, right? So for our clarity and understanding, we are talking about two-way clear communication.
Right.
Not one way. One person gave me a wrong impression. This lady said, well, I talk to God all the time. What she really meant was she talks at God. And look, it's just one-way communication. That's not complete. But as I understood and I followed the process, I mean, I grew up under teachings of Yogananda, which is a combination of advanced yoga from India and then Jesus Christ teaching. It's a combination of both of them. And there is a little booklet that he has written how to communicate. And he has explained it very well. But you got to understand, that book was written like in maybe 20s and 30s. So it's been a while. And the communication technology has changed quite a bit. So I had the benefit of understanding more in today's terms. Like, if you use an example of a cell phone, first of all, the cell phone has to be charged properly. Then there should be no static noises, and there should also not be noises where you are, so you can hear the other person. Because if you're trying to call somebody from fish market, it's probably hard to hear the other person. So similarly, my understanding is that if you use that simple example, then there is a saying in Psalms 46:10, be still and know that I am God. That indication is already given. What does that mean? It means that we can use human body as the cell phone to communicate with divine. And in reality, he's talking to us all the time. Like a loving mother or father, especially when we are anxious, we are in difficulty, when we are praying, He's always talking to us. Only thing is we are not hearing.
All the time.
Oh, yes, because we have so much internal noise. And so, in order to understand what God is saying back to you, we can hear us talking, but we cannot hear Him talking, right? So, number one, we have to become silent on the inside. So before I become silent, I have to understand what is making noise inside of me. Right? Stepping back from that. If the goal is to become silent, I need to find out what is causing the noise. What causes noise is too many thoughts, too many unresolved problems, unmet desires, old issues, a lot of hurt feelings. All they stay inside our energetic self and makes all kinds of noises inside. So the way out of that is that we one by one start resolving all those issues. Because every issue can be resolved. There's a spiritual law. Either you ask somebody for forgiveness or you forgive the other person. And this is true even if the other person is dead. You can still ask for forgiveness and you are forgiven. So once you resolve the problems, then you start to become more and more silent. You see?
Yes.
That's the idea. And then, if you follow some spiritual practice like meditation, meditation is basically what you do is you close your eyes and you close your ears, sit in a silent place, and then you try to go inside and try to develop the silence and the inner unity. The more inner unity that takes place inside of you between your mind and your heart and your physical body and your spirit, the more silent you will become. And as you grow in the spirit dimension, when you ask questions, you will hear very clear answer.
So it's very, very easy to distinguish. It's very clear.
It takes practice. It takes practice, and best thing to do is to at least be surrounded with some of the people who have the ability to do that. But this is not something to play with, but this is something you can use to benefit yourself and several others. That's the proper use of it. Now, as you start developing that, what happens is, and let me just show you how you hear these communications. Some of them hear a sound in the right ear, very clearly. Some of them see picture right here in front of the eyes. Either the eyes are open or closed. They can see visions. You can pray and the vision comes to you, or a sound comes to you. Some of them hear it intuitively. And some of them hear here in this area, in the solar plexus area. Very clear response. Very clear response. And what happens is, initially it's very shy. So it's very soft. And as you become more and more silent on the inside, this voice will appear more and more loud. The more silent you become, more loud this noise, this voice will appear to be. It's a relative term. And as you work with yourself, then what happens is one day the answers come back like somebody dropped a sofa from the third floor.
Oh, wow.
Very loud and very clear. And you have no doubt about it. Now, the question is, how can we be sure that you are hearing God's voice, or you are hearing Jesus' voice, or Yogananda's voice?
Yes.
What you do is, you ask a question, then you keep track of the data.
Write it down.
You write it down. And you go back and validate it over a long period of time.
Kind of like testing.
Yes.
Training.
And then what you do is, how many times it was right. But because in the long term, you will find out if it was the proper guidance or not. If your batting average is 30%, it means you have a lot of work to do. And if you're doing like 60%, you're doing better.
Uh-huh.
And the more silent it becomes, the higher the percentage goes up. And you keep working on it. And it's not something to show off to other people. It's a gift from God.
Mm.
And it makes your life a lot easier. Some people, like you mentioned, who claim to speak to God, but long term, you find out that they actually were not. Then how do you validate that?
Yes, I did.
And I have had an opportunity of talking to several different people because I coach people and help other people out in this field.
Uh-huh.
There are several psychics, several people who have spirit communication, but their problem is that rule number one, they never validate it. They run with the first answer they get. You, over the long period of time, you must always validate. You get lost in this city in Europe, middle of the night, looking for your friend's house. Should I make a right turn? Please, God, help me. You get a clear answer, go to the right. And if it turns out to be the right house, that's the correct. You take 2 columns. That was a good guidance.
Journaling.
But if you say, no, go to the right, and it turned out to be the wrong answer, the house was on the other side, it means then you have work to do. Some of the flaws of communication people have to be very careful is when you are emotionally not clean,
Uh-huh.
then what happens? The answer gets tainted. And you get erroneous answers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important to be very, very detached from the outcome.
Oh, that's
So as a rule, I would highly recommend that if it's something that pertains your some issue like an emotional decision you're going to make,
Mm-hmm.
don't ask.
Mm.
Not unless you are very, very pure and well trained in that field. Because a lot of people get erroneous answers.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens when their heart is not pure, they are clean, then their heart kind of projects itself onto the answer
Yes.
and turns it into a wrong direction, and as a result they get the wrong answer.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And other thing to be watchful is that you need to be very selfless
Mm-hmm.
in asking for an answer. You do not want an answer for personal gain,
Mm-hmm.
because then your own mind imposes its own answer, and then you get the wrong answer again.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
I'm
It
sorry.
works. Unfortunately, it happens that way. People do things like this. The more selfless you are, more emotionally unattached you are, the more silent you are, the better off you are getting the right answer.
Okay, could you say that again?
The more emotionally unattached you are,
Mm-hmm.
more silent you are, more selfless you are, more clean would be the answer.
Say thank you to Layla for
All right,
joining
say it
me.
one more time. Okay, could you repeat that?
The more silent you are, more emotionally detached you are, and more selfless you are, the better answer you will get.
Would you say thank you to Layla?
She's just cracking up.
I'm sorry. Stop.
I want to keep
Oh no, okay. She moved. All right, one more time. Okay, could you repeat that one more time?
The more emotionally unattached you are to the outcome,
Mm-hmm.
the more silent you are inside, and more selfless you are, more clean would your answer be. Because those are the ones that distort the answer
Mm-hmm.
to make it look like the way you want it.
Yes. Mm.
And-
The ego gets in there.
Yes, and it distorts the answer.
Yes.
And as a result, people come out with very deceptive guidance. They think God guided them, but actually, when the answer was coming back, their own emotional, mental, or selfish interest or their ego twisted the answer to suit their outcome.
Yeah, that's
And that's
good.
where it's a big mistake. So I would say that you want to approach it with a pure childlike innocence.
Mm.
The more innocent you are, more pure you are. Because to you, it does not matter what the answer is. Try to ask question as if you are seeking answer for somebody else.
Oh,
That's the best attitude.
that's a good.
Because it does not matter what the answer is.
Uh-huh.
So what happens a lot of times, you see these conditions exist when you are asking questions for somebody else. Then you get a better answer.
Mm.
But if you have any selfish interest or if you have any attachment to any
Mm.
outcomes, then you don't get as good an answer. So it's necessary to train under a good teacher or a guide before one becomes well fine-tuned communicator in divine process.
Mm.
And also, when you have more impurities in you, you're not going to get good answer at all. Sometimes you may not hear anything.
Or if somebody perhaps has like, mental illness or
Oh,
something
then
going on,
there's no chance.
then it's all
There's
null
no
and
chance.
void. Yes.
Yes. Because when you have dark energy inside of you, you're not getting an answer. You're not operating as a well-tuned cell phone. You might as well be operating as a doorknob.
Yeah, it's all
And
short-circuited. Yes.
There's an art and science to this process,
Mhm.
and believe me, it works.
Yeah, that's really good advice because it's like proven and tested, and if you're journaling and writing it down, then you are honing your own kind of
Yes,
laboratory in a sense.
The idea is to create that feedback loop of validation by
Mhm.
keeping two columns. Did you get the right answer? And then the long-term follow, track it up. And you take the columns and see what your batting average is.
Mm.
And in my opinion, if you are doing 80 to 85%, you're doing very good.
Oh, yes.
But you also need to be very aware, sometimes you are in no emotional condition to communicate with anybody.
Mhm.
And that's the last place for you to be communicating with divine.
Mhm.
Because you're neither emotionally ready, nor are you physically ready, nor you're mentally ready.
Mhm.
So you gotta keep this cell phone tuned up, charged up, and cleaned up, and
Mhm.
static free.
Yeah, that's really good practical things we can do. And then it seems to me that would also build some internal credibility because then you could, when you're
Yes,
trusting, you
Yes.
can even trust more and more and go.
yes, yes. I mean, I can draw my own chart how my numbers develop this way.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it will become more like an engineering challenge.
Mm-hmm.
In 95, I was like 50-50.
Wow.
In end of 96, I was 60%.
Oh, so like 15% a year kind of.
Yeah, so I tracked it.
Uh-huh.
And the idea is to keep honing yourself, keep cleaning yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
also you can monitor some things within your body to know how clean you are.
Mm. Oh, that's
Like
a
you
good
can monitor your spine, or you can monitor energy around your fingers, or you can monitor energy around your head or eyes. Everybody has those symbols or telltale signs within the body to let you know that you are feeling cleaner.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Let's talk about that in a segment. That's really intriguing.
Yes.
But
yes.
thank you for sharing on this. It's really helpful.